61 years ago today, August 28th, Dr. Martin Luther King gave his famous history-making, history-changing I Have a Dream speech in the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. There are so many beautiful elements surrounding how that day unfolded, how the speech came together, that I just think are important to talk about. Okay, so first and foremost, a lot of people will say, oh, he didn't finish his speech until 3:30 in the morning. He was a procrastinator. You know, the greats procrastinate. It's not actually what was happening. He was contemplating. And I do think there was a little bit of cognitive dissonance because of the limitations around his speaking opportunity in Washington, but I'll get into that. Now, the reason we know he wasn't procrastinating is because he was writing this speech way back when. In 1957 is the first time we hear Dr. King talk about the New World. We also hear him reference My Country 'Tis of Thee, that song, and Let Freedom Ring. Now, in 1958, I actually did a job about this visit. Dr. King was invited to Bennett College by the president of Bennett College. This is an all-black woman college, a black woman president. Dr. King was banned from speaking in Greensboro, where the college is located, and she invited him anyway, and he went to the campus. He spoke to many college students there that day, and in that speech, which they found a recording, and they digitized it. They saved it and digitized it. He says, we aren't in the promised land yet, the promised land of integration. So he was using some language in 1958 at Bennett College. Now, side note, there were college students at Bennett College to hear him speak who then became a part of the Woolworths counter sit-in in Greensboro. Major milestones in the civil rights movement. All because a black woman invited him to the campus in Greensboro. Okay, I digress. All right, so now in 1960, that's the first time we hear Dr. King use the American dream. Okay, so now he's on the theme of the American dream. 2 months before his speech in Washington, in August in Washington, he was in Detroit, Michigan, the Walk to Freedom. And that was when we start hearing, I Have a Dream. We hear him speaking about the dream and narrating the dream, right? 2 months before the March on Washington. Okay, so now he's writing the speech and he only has 5 minutes. And he expected 100,000 people to be there, or hoped 100,000 people would be in Washington. There were 250,000 people from across the country in Washington. Now, he's thinking there's a very huge crowd here, a mixed crowd of people. I'm going to keep it surface level. I'm not going to get as deep as I usually do when I have smaller, more intimate crowds, which were still big, but you get what I'm saying. And his advisors were like, you know, you don't have to include the dream stuff. You only have time for one theme because it's a 5-minute speech. So he wrote his speech, and the theme was kind of the bad check that, you know, the bad check America had written, African Americans, Black Americans. And that was really where the speech was going to go that day. Okay. He's delivering his speech. And let me give you a little side note. Originally, there were not supposed to be any women included in the speaker list, despite black women being the backbone of the movement. Okay. Luckily, that changed at the last minute. All right, so Dr. King is giving his speech, and Mahalia Jackson, the queen of gospel music, right, the soundtrack of the civil rights music, is in the crowd. And she shouts at him, tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream. He diverts from the written word, never goes back to it, and includes his I have a dream language, his message. The 5-minute speech ended up becoming a 17-minute speech. And he wasn't speaking off the cuff. He was saying all of these things that he had been saying all of these years. It was just this culmination. It just all came together. And people will even say, you know, you can really feel the sermon start to show up. Beautiful, just beautiful. You know, I think it's so important that we honor moments like this outside of MLK Day, because this is not our past. You know, I interviewed in 2019, I did a project with Clara Esther. This woman is still alive, and she was standing on the balcony in Memphis next to Dr. King when he was assassinated. So this is our past, and it is our present. And it's important that we know about it and we understand how these things unfolded, and we continue to fight for that American dream and make good on that check.